So, what if the first step to being truly happy wasn't about gaining something, but losing it? I know it sounds a little weird, but that's the wild idea we're going to explore today, using a guide to blessedness from all the way back in the 17th century. We're diving into the mind of a theologian named Thomas Watson to unpack a secret he believed was the key to a genuinely meaningful life. Now, Watson didn't see this as just some nice advice. No way. He called it a golden key, something that could literally unlock the gate of paradise. I mean, that's a powerful image, right? A single key to a life of deep, profound joy. So the big question is, what is this key and how in the world do we use it? Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through 5 key areas to really get this. We'll start with the universal search for happiness. Then we'll look at where Watson says we're never going to find it. After that, we'll uncover the really counterintuitive key he presents, figure out what poor in spirit actually means, and finally, check out the incredible reward that's promised. So let's kick things off with the quest itself. Watson basically says this desire for blessedness, true, deep happiness, is the ultimate goal for every single person on the planet. It's the target we're all aiming for, whether we realize it or not. But you have to wonder, if everyone is searching for the same thing, why do so few people actually seem to find it? Well, according to Watson, a huge part of the problem is just confusion, total confusion. He points to this one scholar who actually counted 288 different opinions on what happiness even is. Can you imagine? And Watson's take on all 288? He thought every single one of them completely missed the mark. It's just a perfect picture of how lost we can get in this search. And all that confusion? It leads us right to Watson's second point. We're looking for happiness in all the wrong places. He argues that the single biggest mistake we make is trying to find it in worldly things. Money, status, pleasure, the whole shebang. He puts it pretty bluntly. We're essentially digging for a blessing in a place that's cursed. And what I find so fascinating here is how logically he just dismantles this whole idea. He gives 5 solid reasons why worldly things will always fail us. First, they just don't match what our soul is actually looking for. Second, they're powerless to quiet a guilty conscience. Third, they're temporary. He literally says they fly away. Fourth, they often bring way more anxiety than they do comfort. And finally, and this is a big one, if they're all you've got, they can actually become a curse. And to prove his point, Watson brings up the ultimate test case, King Solomon. I mean, if anyone in history could find happiness and worldly success, it was this guy. He had the royal bloodline, unbelievable wealth, he made silver as common as rocks in Jerusalem. He had every pleasure you could imagine, and he was the wisest man of his time. He had it all. Literally. So, what was his final verdict? After having everything the world could possibly offer him, all was vanity, totally meaningless. Watson calls Solomon's life a painted paradise and a glorious misery. It's the perfect proof that you can have a mountain of worldly stuff, but it can't fill that void in your soul. So, if happiness isn't out there, then where is it? And this is where we get to the actual answer. Now that we've seen where happiness isn't, Watson unveils this radical, almost paradoxical solution from the Sermon on the Mount. And let me tell you, it's one that turns the world's logic completely on its head. Here it is. Blessed are the poor in spirit. This is the first part of that golden key. Did you catch that? Not the rich, not the powerful, not the successful, but the poor. And not even just poor in your bank account, but poor in spirit. This, Watson says, is the foundation that all other blessedness is built on. Okay, so what on earth does it mean to be poor in spirit? Because this is probably the most crucial part of the whole key, but it's also the one that's super easy to misunderstand. And Watson is very, very clear about what it is and what it isn't. And we have to get really precise here, because being poor in spirit is the absolute opposite of being poor-spirited. See, being poor-spirited, Watson says, is about being cowardly or spineless or just going along with bad things. That is not it at all. Being poor in spirit is totally different. It means seeing your own spiritual bankruptcy. It's realizing you bring nothing to the table, and so you have to rely completely on God's mercy. Watson uses this really intense phrase to describe it, self-annihilation. Now, that sounds pretty extreme, right? But he doesn't mean erasing your personality. He means erasing your self-righteousness. It's that moment when you stop thinking, I'm a pretty good person, and instead you see your deep, deep spiritual need. It's the big shift from self-reliance to total reliance on a grace you know you didn't earn. And according to Watson, when this happens on the inside, you start to see real changes on the outside. First, you're weaned from depending on yourself. That, in turn, leads you to become a huge admirer of Christ as your only hope. Naturally, this makes you truly humble, lowly in heart. And because you're so aware of your need, you find yourself in prayer a lot more. And finally, you can't help but celebrate God's grace because you know for sure it's a gift, not a wage. All right, so now we get to the reward. What's the payoff for all this? For this kind of spiritual poverty, this self-annihilation? Well, according to the text, it's not just a nice feeling of peace. Oh no, it's something way, way bigger. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's the second half of the key. The promise is that the people who recognize their spiritual poverty are given the ultimate treasure, an entire kingdom. It is an incredible paradox, isn't it? The path to becoming unimaginably rich begins with admitting that you are completely poor. And Watson, he really paints a vivid picture of what this kingdom is like. He says the poor in spirit receive the full royal treatment. They get a crown of life that will never fade. They wear white robes, a symbol of total purity, and they are given a throne of glory. It's this image of ultimate, unshakable honor. And this table right here, it just drives the point home perfectly. I mean, look at earthly kingdoms. They're built by people, they're always worried about invasions or falling apart, and eventually they all crumble. But this heavenly kingdom, it's founded by God, it is totally secure, and it is everlasting. When it comes to value and just permanence, there is absolutely no comparison. And really, that brings us right to the heart of it all. Thomas Watson's explanation is this profound challenge to all our modern ideas of success. He's basically arguing that the real door to true, lasting royal wealth isn't achievement, it's humility. It's a deep recognition of our own spiritual poverty. So it kind of leaves us with a big question. In a world that is constantly telling us to build ourselves up, where are we really looking for our true wealth?